to MVP Coaching Corner, where bro logic goes to die, covering nutrition, contest prep, PEDs, personal experiences, coaching, and living the life in the bodybuilding industry. How are both of you guys doing today?
Good.
She always says that
Coleman's
I talk.
upset. Coleman's upset.
Why am I upset?
Berry flavored greens.
Oh yeah, these things are gross. No,
I don't
but
know, man. I always feel like the chocolate ones taste like grass plus chocolate, so I never like
Yeah.
those either.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm okay with grass, but plus chocolate.
Really? I
Yeah,
don't.
The
I don't know. I
non-goat
feel like
berry.
yeah, I feel like the berry one seems like more natural, kind of, right? Like
Right.
it's like the flavor profile kind of goes together.
I hate when you put berries in my plant, let alone. So
That's true.
That's
You're not
true.
a big berry person. I
I'm
don't know
not a.
because
The only
I
fruits I like is bananas and apples. That's it.
They're so
did
plain.
you did you sing that song your whole childhood? I like to eat apples and bananas.
I don't even know that song. I'm gonna be
I
What?
actually
honest.
know what you're talking about. I do.
No,
Yeah, it was on Barney. I like to eat apples and
Oh my
bananas.
gosh.
oh yeah,
my
I
no,
like
my
to
parents dressed me up as
oh.
Barney for Halloween one time. I have to find that picture now and send it
Please
to
do.
that's a good one.
you. I was so pissed.
I know what I'm getting. Purple dinosaur.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the next thing. That's
Mhm.
the next craze. I love it. I love it. So today we wanted to cover on how to structure a weight loss or weight gain phase of a plan because I feel like this is something that people kind of randomly do, and they also don't know how to implement it. So they just either take away a bunch of food really quickly, or they add a bunch of food in really quickly. Especially like for people who like are very new to this, right? Like I know obviously being in Aries, Coleman, I know you see this too. Bree, I know you know this from coaching people that immediately for a lot of people, okay, I want to start getting in shape for the summer. I want to start getting in shape for a prep. I really don't know what I'm doing. So my first instinct is to drop my carbs, right?
Mhm.
I literally had three people the other day come in and say, I do keto. I've been doing it for 4 months. Sorry, chewing at the same time. I did keto for 4 months. I dropped like 20 plus pounds the first month. Now I can't lose any more weight. And I go, well, you see, it's a fat diet. You're going to get an initial weight loss, but then it's going to all come right back. They're like, what do you mean by that? And I was like, well, you see, you're cutting out one complete source. Now you're making yourself do gluconeogenesis. They're like, what's gluconeogenesis? And then I fully explained what that is. And they're like, oh, that makes sense. And I was like, yeah, so don't just cut out one food group,
Yeah. You can't just
minimize.
cut out one food group. And I'll see it a lot with some athletes that I work with too. And they're trying to, cut weight for wrestling or just get ready for their season. And they're not fueling their bodies for how much they're actually outputting. So it's really tough to see that.
Yeah, no. And it's because like again, people chase the scale so much. So like if we look at how glycogen is stored, right? Glycogen is stored with water as well.
Mhm.
Hence carbohydrate, right? So when we pull carbs immediately, there will always be a weight loss response because glycogen also has a physical weight as well. It's
Right.
fuel.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's going to be initial weight loss response out of the gate from depletion of glycogen and the droppage of water from pooling carbohydrates. But like it's weight, it's not actual fat. If Coleman or me or you dropped our carbs to half and but it replaced them with fats, we would initially see weight loss on the scale. But if we went and did when did like a DEXA scan or something, our body fat would be sitting around the same exact amount because we didn't create a deficit. All we did is replace one fuel source with another.
Hmm.
And the one thing that comes along with two different fuel sources is how it's stored and what comes along with it being stored. Um, but going into that, the first thing I like people to do when they want to enter some type of like weight loss phase is, especially if you're not following a specific plan, is just figure out where you're at, right? And
Right.
like with like Gen Pop people, I'll just tell them just track what your current food is like on a for a week
Yeah.
because
Mm,
it's just nice to know where you're at. Like all you need is data at that
Mhm.
point.
Yeah.
And based off that, you can make calculated decisions. Because like I feel like again, so many people, especially if you're not following a specific plan, just start pulling food away. And the thing that I see a lot of people doing now, and it's honestly it's not a bad thing because like if you're not following a structured plan, counting one select macro is somewhat helpful. Like we'll see on intake forms all the time, people just count the protein goal, right?
Mhm.
They're like, yeah, I just know I need to get this much protein per day, but everything else is kind of like sporadic, which is understandable. But just having some type of starting point. So all right, cool. So I ate 150 carbs this day, 200 this day, 300 this day, and then back to 200, blah blah blah. I would just add up your macros over the course of the week and divide by 7 and see what your average was. Just so you
Mhm.
had that starting point. Because at the end of the day, all we're trying to do is create some type of deficit or some type of surplus based on the goal.
Right. And a
And
lot of people you'll see when they don't track, they end up under eating anyways, and so they're just hurting themselves even more.
Yeah, I was about to say that the number one thing we do see is people are like, yeah, I'm eating like 1,200 to 1,700 calories,
And then they're
most
cutting
of the
that
time,
from there to try to lose
and
weight.
it's like a guy who's like eating 1,700 calories, and it's like, dude, I eat like 4,000, and I lose weight like crazy,
Mhm.
and it's like,
But the thing is, it's like obviously, right? Is like figuring out what someone's BMR is, and if they don't know where
yeah,
their BMR is, they're pulling away food from a place they really don't have to.
yeah,
And sometimes all I need is consistency at the end of the day. So like when we first get a client and we realize we don't know where their calories are at, we kind of just baseline them.
Mhm.
And kind of a shot in the dark to an extent, but we're obviously doing some calculations based off like age, weight, activity level to make these calculations. But all they need to just so we can decide what to do with the rest of the food is just have a week of consistency.
yeah, and to see where they're at, like digestion wise, stuff like that. See all their like feedback that they give us, and then you can really gauge everything from there.
Mhm. Sure.
Because like the thing is like this, I tell people like the most they should aim for per week is 1%. So and 1% of the total weight. So let's just say like someone is 200 pounds, the most that person should really strive for to lose per week is about 2 pounds per week.
Yeah,
And then and going the opposite way, if that person is trying to grow, the most that person should ever aim for is 2 pounds per
Mhm.
week.
Yeah.
I like to keep it lower than that for the most part because we put on fat much quicker than we lose fat. Um, but I don't like to aim for those type of metrics and keep those for lines in the sand. So I guess the first thing I'll talk about is the difference between clients' plans when they're trying to gain weight compared to the clients trying to lose weight.
Mhm.
Uh, so
more
I
food.
guess again, obviously more food being the big thing, but also activity level, right? So like the one thing I like to do is minimize stress. Now you can create a caloric deficit doing many things. You can increase food consumption or you can reduce activity. Based on what that person does for a living, you can kind of determine which route you can kind of go. So we have a lot of people who do have some physical jobs that do get a lot of steps in per day and do have a lot of activity level for the day. So sometimes for these people, what I would do is actually pull away additional activity if possible. So if I do have them doing 20 minutes of walking after the gym, I'll possibly eliminate that completely because they're doing way more than 20 minutes of walking the whole entire day compared to my guy who works at a desk all day at a computer who's getting 3,000 steps in. So I have to encourage him to get more activity in.
Hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. Because the higher your activity level, the more you're gonna burn more stuff regardless. And if you need people who have more, trying to think of the word, I just completely forgot the word. Higher activity jobs. Sorry, early morning. Higher activity jobs. You can probably get away with not giving them cardio when they're in a weight gain phase.
Yeah, you probably won't have to do much for digestion because they're going to be active throughout the whole entire day. Instead of like them doing 10-minute walks after each meal, they're pretty much walking consistently anyway, or
Mhm.
doing something throughout the day. So digestion typically goes pretty flawlessly with those people.
Mhm.
Um, but when we're increasing food for these people, we typically obviously are not only just chasing the scale, we're also chasing a look, right, and chasing a feel. Um, and like the cool thing about this is that even in these weight gain phases, I know we're using the word weight gain phase, but we're obviously referring to the putting on of tissue, right? Being in a caloric surplus. Um, so like the big thing I also want to chase here or mention here is that like if the scale doesn't move, but all the other metrics improve, you're still doing the correct things. I'll use Brock as a prime example for this.
Yes.
He's one of our clients that has one of the fastest metabolisms I've ever worked with personally. And the amount of food he eats is kind of insane. But the scale has not moved much for this kid over the time working for us. But the photos drastically keep improving, muscle density keeps improving, strength keeps going up. So even if you're in this weight gain phase and you do see yourself periodically increasing food with no success on the scale, there's so many other metrics that you need to be focusing on as well. Not only obviously to prevent yourself from getting discouraged, but you can continually keep tracking progress and know if it's time to bump up food again. So if you keep seeing progress in the gym increasing linearly, even with the physical weight not increasing, if the check-in photos look better and they're again gym performance increases, you still have enough food to keep going.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest things. I think that's probably the biggest thing that people should chase in a weight gain phase, like a surplus, should be like gym performance rather than look. Because I know that's where a lot of people struggle is with the look aspect of things. So you got to change. You got to like shift their focus into
Okay.
how am I improving, like strength wise, just for the mental aspect of it.
Right. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, and that's the hardest thing about an off season for a lot of people is that they're not seeing these drastic differences in the mirror every week on the check-ins. They don't look drastically better each week. Maybe some weeks they look actually possibly worse than other weeks because maybe they're having some digestive issues with the food increase, or maybe they feel a little more watery, or things on the lines of that, right? But if performance is still going in the correct direction, and obviously body fat's not getting to the extreme levels, there's still some progress obviously being made, and that person should obviously keep making strides. But that's also why we do these periodic recomps with our clients, because obviously not only for the mental state of it as well, but also um, keeping them sensitive, right? I don't want my clients to become insulin resistant because I'm pushing food every single week. I also don't want people's body fat to get to the extreme levels where their prep is extremely difficult because they're now 50 pounds away from stage weight.
Right.
And obviously the hormonal part of it too, right? Body fat by itself is naturally estrogenic, especially for my natural males. Like I don't want their body fat going above really like 16, 18%. Because then again, I'm going to think about things like estrogen levels increasing, even though they are natural, just again, because fat is naturally estrogenic. But the next thing I guess we'll talk about is going to a dieting phase, what that looks like, right? And the big thing I like to talk about this is like activity level.
Yeah, activity level is one of the biggest things because you can just simply leave their food the exact. Yeah, we did this with a bunch of people before. We literally just threw in like 10, 15 minutes of cardio, and then scale drops 2 pounds. Next
Yeah.
week, scale drops 2 pounds, not changing any variables, not changing any food. All we did is just throw in a little bit of activity.
Yeah. And
Because
that's one of the
it's
reasons
like
why I don't keep activity high with off season. Because when you do implement it, there is going to be a great return. I'm
yeah,
not saying that cardio doesn't have a place in off season, it definitely does. Everyone typically has a step goal per day.
yeah,
Um, and
1,000%.
again, yeah, it's mostly some type of neat goal for each day. And then adding in that extra cardio, typically just enough of a push without taking away food. And the thing I love about that is that normally never decreases gym performance.
Right. Because then they have enough energy to continue. So,
Yeah, because your food is still extremely high.
right.
Typically, if they're one of our
Yeah.
clients, your food is typically still really high.
Yeah, for that individual. Yeah.
And if all they're doing is now doing cardio after they lifted, the food was the same the whole entire day going up to the lift.
Yeah,
So now all he has to do is do something additionally kind of strenuous after the workout. So from that perspective, there was no reason for that workout to suffer at all. And that's one of the big things is that people's first instinct is normally to pull away food. And well, no, what are you doing throughout the day? And maybe we can just change that. And that's why I think like steps is something that everyone should implement to an extent into their plan because number one, it's easy to get through the whole entire day. and it accounts to being a lot of actual caloric burn throughout the whole entire day too. Because like on average, 1,000 steps is about 10 minutes for the average person.
Yeah.
So if someone had a 10,000 step goal per day, that's 100 minutes of walking.
Yeah.
No
That's a
one's
lot.
spending, yeah, like no one's spending almost 2 hours on the treadmill a day.
Never.
Yeah.
You can't pay me enough to do that.
But if you just had a 10K step goal and you just implemented it throughout the day, going for a little walk in the morning, periodically just not sitting down when you're home, walking around when you're texting compared to sitting in a chair, like all those things add up through the whole entire day and equate to you being on treadmill for 100 minutes.
Yeah, because I normally get to like 8K steps by like 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
And that's just, I do a 30-minute walk in the morning, which is about 3.8K, I think for me. It's
Mhm.
3.8K steps, typically, roundabout. And
Mhm.
so right there in the morning, I'm almost at 4,000. So
Yeah.
I'm 4 out of 10 done. And then literally just the rest of the time is literally just me walking around,
Yeah.
just like doing random things. Nothing like crazy to like try and make sure I'm getting steps in. It's just my normal life. And I do not live a life where I have to walk around a lot.
Yeah.
So Mark,
I could be sedentary.
I know the answer to this, but I think it would be like important to also touch on this because a lot of people, they think fasted cardio is like
Mhm.
the pinnacle, the like that's the way I'm going to lose weight. So maybe touch on that and why.
Yeah,
um
totally. So I definitely think faster cardio has its place.
mhm.
But like again, like I rely on the phrase that we should never sacrifice sleep to try to create a bigger caloric deficit. And this is because like things like T3 have a direct correlation to sleep quality, right? So like how our thyroid actually functions. So like if I'm sacrificing from getting 7 hours of sleep to 5 hours of sleep to wake up to go to the gym to do 30 minutes of Stairmaster, well, I'm literally stepping over quarters to pick up pennies. That's what I'm doing. And it doesn't really make any sense to me.
Right.
And now I understand like something is better than nothing at the end of the day, right? So like, okay, like I burned an extra 300 calories compared to obviously not going to do cardio. And that's why like you can also do fed cardio. Statistically, in every single study done, they have showed no direct correlation in the amount of weight loss compared to fed cardio compared to faster cardio. Now, when it comes to faster cardio, I definitely think there is a place. So, like, here's some examples where I would recommend faster cardio. You have a client who's insulin resistant, and they're waking up every single day, and their blood sugar is over 100. Those are people who I 100% recommend faster cardio to because they're going to be fighting an uphill battle the whole entire day. Because the issue is, if you're starting your day at 100 and I'm going to have breakfast, where is my blood sugar going to go? It's going to go to 160, 170, 180, maybe 200. And I'm going to be fighting for the next 3 hours to get it possibly down to a normal range, but then I'll be eating again. And I'm never going to be in a period of time where the whole entire day where my blood sugar is actually in a good place. But if I'm going to take the same exact client who's waking up with a blood sugar of 110, and I have them going to go do the Stairmaster for 20 minutes in the morning, or I have them go for a 20-minute walk in the morning, by the time they finish that activity, their blood sugar is going to be back in normal ranges, maybe in the low 90s, maybe the high 80s. So when they do have breakfast and they do have their meal, they're going to be in a better place. Because again, it's extremely hard to burn fat when your blood sugar is kind of erratic. And that's
Yeah.
one of the one things I normally fix with my clients that do have blood sugar issues is let me get blood sugar under control, and then everything else will fall into place. And I like to use the analogy of this. If let's use money as the example. If you have a bunch of cash in your pocket, there really isn't a reason for you ever to, in essence, take a credit card out and use it or use your savings because you have cash in your pocket. So if you have tons of sugar in your blood, the blood sugar is elevated, why would your body ever reach anywhere else for fuel if I have so much sugar in my blood at the moment? There isn't a reason for it to.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the only times I would probably say faster cardio is extremely needed because they are starting off in a disadvantaged place. But again, there's medication you can do to supplement that. That person could take Atlantis before they go to bed, and they'll probably wake up in a better position. They could take metformin before they went to bed. They'd probably wake up in a better position. They could probably take berberine and go for a walk before going to bed. they'll probably be in a better position. Maybe the blood sugar elevated in the morning due to things like cortisol. When cortisol is elevated, your body's response is to release glucose because fight or flight, right? So maybe something that has to do with cortisol or the circadian rhythm has to be fixed as well. There's a lot of things that could affect the fasted glucose being elevated. But the quickest fix if that person wanted to start losing weight at a better speed is doing some type of fasted activity just to get them in a good place. That definitely went off on a tangent.
No, that was awesome. That was awesome.
I was just letting you go.
I loved it.
But I love it. But so like the one thing again, going back to that, the fasted glucose, and this is something that I've done with myself personally. Me and Bruce have done this with myself. I play with Coleman with this a little bit.
Yep.
Is,
I know you're
is,
going with right now.
is fasted cardio with the use of Humalog. And so Humalog is a fast-acting insulin. And you could take someone, you can put them in a lower range and then force them to do some type of cardio activity. And since they're taking a drug like Humalog, again, a fast-acting insulin, let's just say Coleman was waking up in the 90s, 95, 92, 94, whatever in the morning, and he went and took 3 units of Humalog, he's going to go down to the 70s. So when Coleman starts doing cardio, his blood sugar is going to keep tapering down and down and down. And probably by the time he finishes his fasted cardio, he'll probably be like in the 50s and 60s. Now, in this period of time, you feel like absolute dog shit. You do. You absolutely feel like dog shit in this position. But the thing about it is that you are forcing your body to break down glycogen at a faster rate. So you're forcing your body to break down fat at a faster rate, specifically because you put yourself in a place where your blood sugar is in a disadvantaged position.
Yeah, I remember we did it for like a week. And it was just to see what my reaction was to it. And everything was very controlled and stuff like that. I think the highest we ever got to was 3 units I ever needed.
Yeah.
Just literally like nothing.
Yeah. So for reference range, when we talk about managing blood sugar, we typically say 1 unit is 8 to 10 carbs, right? So if a diabetic is going to have a meal and the meal is going to consist of 50 grams of carbs, they would probably have about 5 units of Humalog to keep the blood sugar in a good place. So, well, I'll use it for example. I've been doing this for my recomp again, and I'm on my 3rd week, and I've been losing about 3 to 4 pounds per week doing it with no change of calories. And it just all I'm doing is I'm putting my body in that position where it doesn't have another option to burn anything else as fuel. And that's why you have this. I don't know if you've noticed or seen the new GLP-1A antagonists that people are now using.
Semaglutide, I literally was on the phone with Bree last night talking about semaglutide. It's I watched John Jewett's podcast about it with I forget the guy's name, but the guy's like really well known for like knowing what semaglutide does, and it was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I was gonna text you about it, and then I completely forgot once I got here.
It's actually, I don't know if you knew this, a lot of wellness clinics in New Jersey are now giving it out.
Yeah, it's very common to give out. That's what they were saying.
And again, it's a blood sugar drug, right?
Yeah.
That's all it is. And that's the one thing, and this is why so many metabolic diseases come from blood sugar issues, because at the end of the day, your blood sugar being elevated for a long duration of time prevents a lot of things metabolically from happening. So if we can put you in a better position throughout the day, this is also why like metformin is such an amazing drug to use for a lot of people too. Same exact thing. You're keeping yourself in a better position when it comes to blood sugar. They're also saying that's why metformin has like life extension benefits, due to the prevention of free radicals and glucose being kept at a better place. But it's neither here nor there. But so to keep us on track, how do we keep clients on track in a weight gain phase? Now this is the thing that becomes a little challenging, because sometimes when you give someone a little bit of free will, they kind of want a mile when you give them an inch. And this is like when it comes to like cheat meals, right? So like we'll start with that first. Like, what's a cheat meal and what's a binge? So like normally when like someone asks like what cheat meal is, I'm saying it's going to be like one select thing. So like if I went to a restaurant and I had a burger and fries, that's a cheat meal, right? But if I don't know, if I went and I ordered out and I had possibly an appetizer, I had an entree, I had 2 or 3 beers, and I had dessert, and maybe when I got home I had a cookie. Now I would call that now binge, right? Because like the amount of calories you probably ingested between those 4 or 5 things is possibly maybe even almost, depending on where your calories are at, maybe almost a whole entire day or 2 days of food. Um, Depending on where you went out to eat. And like I'll use a place like Cheesecake Factory. There, if you look at the calories on Cheesecake Factory, almost every single entree is at least 1,300 calories. So let's say you're a female who went to Cheesecake Factory. You had meal 1 through 5 already, and that you're replacing your sixth meal with this. So you possibly already ingested 13 or 1,500 calories for that day, and you're replacing your last meal with this now. So I'm gonna top my day off with a 1,300 calorie dinner, and I'm gonna have calamari. So I had like another 300 calories. I'm gonna have this delicious dirty martini. So I had another 300 calories from this. And now I'm having this chocolate lava cake at 300-400 calories. Now I'm gonna go home and have a cookie dealer cookie. Um, I
That's
ate,
about
I ate almost 3 days of food at
Mhm.
the end of my night. So is that a cheat meal now, or is that a binge? In my personal opinion, that's a binge. You definitely overdid it in that scenario.
yeah.
Um, and that's something that like obviously like it's hard to audit sometimes because like I don't ask what someone's cheat meal was.
I think we've only ever asked maybe once,
Yeah,
and it's
that's
someone,
not the question I
and it was
asked.
someone in a recomp phase, and it was just we were just seeing how much he act like what he was actually eating because he was like, "Can I eat this?" And we were like, "Well, how much are you planning to eat of it?"
Right.
Yeah,
Just for like he was asking for guidance.
Mhm.
yeah. And that's always obviously completely okay. Um, but like there's a threshold. There's definitely a threshold, and because like the goal is to gain weight, but not get obese, right? That's not the goal here at all. And the cheat meal, obviously, in the off season is more so for a mental break more than anything else. Because like we understand that when the season does come around and it is time to actual prep, that it's game time, right? And you have to be really locked in. But like if you aren't living life throughout the rest of the year, sometimes it's hard to be that locked in. You have FOMO and everything else. Like I understand that people there's a life outside of bodybuilding, and if it is not hurting a client, I don't mind giving them free meals on a weekly basis. But when that becomes abused, then we kind of have to rattle it in a little bit.
Yeah, especially when it's like it goes throughout the week too, and it like leaks into that.
Yeah. And that's why like I never like clients doing like brunch or breakfast as their cheat meals. Because like even like hormonally it's a battle now because like you now spike ghrelin because I had this crazy fatty sugary breakfast. And number one, either one of two things are gonna happen. You're either gonna miss your meals because you're so full from having that cheat meal that you're not gonna finish all your meals for the day. Or the other thing that's going to happen is that you're gonna cheat the rest of the day because you're gonna have really bad cravings because what you had at breakfast.
Right.
Anyone listening who's my client, that's why I say replace your last meal with it because like I've seen that happen a million times, and I'm like, you know what, this is it. If you have meal 1 through 5 and you at least got nailed that during the day, that like okay, like you're just having like extra calories now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like as
Sometimes
long as
they're
you're
like, okay.
no finish.
So then, and sometimes they're like, oh, well, I already messed up this morning, so, and then continue to mess up through the rest of the day.
Yeah, and then
Mhm.
that can leak over to the next day and the next day and the next day, and it's a cycle that you don't
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah, yeah. Especially when you want to be competitive, and
Mhm.
especially when you have these goals, I think it's important, like if you're serious about it, to hold yourself accountable and
Yeah,
pick
it's you know
what's
what
it.
it comes down to just keeping the promises to ourselves,
Mm-hmm,
right? And that's really what it comes down to. That it doesn't matter if you're competing or not competing,
mm-hmm,
is just keeping a promise to yourself. And like, if you can do that, not only obviously when it comes to nutrition, but anything else in life, just keeping promises to yourself, you notice that you'll be happy with everything you do and you'll be better at everything you do because you literally just, okay, like, I owe it to myself not to lie to myself today. I'm not going to wake up today and grab that muffin from Wawa on the way to work because I know that even though present Mark wants this, future Mark is going to be very disappointed
mm-hmm,
when he comes through when that passes, right? That oh fuck, I caved in again.
mm-hmm. And it becomes easier as you continue to stay on your plan and stay, I
All you
guess,
gotta do is make your
like,
food fun.
yeah, like we make
That's the other thing too.
Yeah, Brie makes me pancakes every Saturday morning. It's great.
with a cream of rice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like even like I'll go example like when some people's food are high, right? I moved some people from rice to gluten-free pasta, right? Because it was number
Mhm.
one, less voluminous. It was more entertaining to eat too. It was
Right.
easier to eat, especially if you're busy throughout the day. Like it's shoving 5 spoonfuls of pasta in your mouth is much easier than like 300 grams of rice sometimes. And like for people who have busy schedules, it's more convenient for them. And like they were also able to spice it up more than spicing up rice, right? They were able to like put like a little tomato sauce on it. They were able to add some fresh herbs, like all those things made it enjoyable again. So like again, like because off the office becomes very monotonous, right? Like it becomes very bland and boring, and you're just doing the same thing over and over again. And the only thing that you really see getting better is typically your gym performance. And another reason why tracking gym performance is super super helpful because it gives you the insight to see if you're truly actually making progress. It gives you a goal to hit each and every day. And it's also going to obviously keep you motivated because that's going to be the thing that's going to steadily increase in your off season, probably much, much faster than your physique.
Yeah. Your gym performance is gonna be the biggest thing for you to shift your focus to.
Yep.
Yeah. Like
Because you
clients are
can
hitting PRs every week in their app. Every week they're hitting PRs and strong.
the
They're
one
not looking drastically better every single week in their off season, but those numbers are getting better every week in their off season.
Alexa every single day has a PR
Yeah.
besides on her deload weeks. And she hasn't missed a single I don't think there's been I think there was 2 sessions ever that she didn't have a PR.
Yeah.
And her PRs always are at least anywhere from 5 to 7.
Mhm.
Never less than 5 to 7. It's insane.
Well, if she strictly look at the mirror and the scale every week,
Yeah.
and you'd be discouraged. Like I've been doing this for 6 months, like I don't look drastically better. But like if you take check-in one, check-in now, yeah, there's a big difference.
Mhm.
But in the mirror every single day looking at it, you're not seeing that.
Right.
So having the logbook to look at and be like, yeah, I fucking shit on last week and I shit on the week before that and
Mhm.
I'm a shit on the following week too. Is something that kind of keeps you excited too to go to the gym. 'Cause, like that's the other thing too is like during prep, it's easy as fuck to go to the gym all the time and be super excited about your lift and be very zoned in because there's a deadline, right? Like, especially if you're someone who's a procrastinator, you're like, oh fuck, I have 3 months to get ready for this, or I have 4 months to get ready for this.
Mhm.
But when it comes to your off season, I have 24 months, I have 16 months. Like it doesn't feel as urgent. But when they're like, okay, I'm going to the gym today, I'm gonna fucking beat this number. I'm gonna get 7 today. I got 6 last week. It kind of gives you something to kind of focus at and like aim towards each day.
Mhm.
Exactly. Um, so like let's talk about like when we would actually enter like maybe a weight loss phase or a prep phase. Like and like what do we determine as being like a good spot for that? Because there is kind of like a transition that happens. If I'm going to try to get someone ready to possibly do a show. And there's kind of a couple things I like to line up first. So like the first thing like I typically like to line up, and I'm gonna use Victoria as an example for this, because she's exactly in this position that
Mhm.
we were increasing food almost every other week and weight was steadily increasing. Performance was drastically increasing every single week until we hit a point where we did not have to increase food any longer. Weight was increasing weekly, gym performance was increasing weekly without any increase of food. This allowed us to know that, okay, this amount of calories is slightly above her BMR. Let me hold her food here until weight gain eventually stops. And you're going to eventually hit this baseline period because even if, and again, even if your weight went up and muscle mass didn't drastically go up, your BMR still goes up to an extent because you're carrying around more weight. The
Mhm.
more you weigh, the more calories you burn doing every activity, right? So you're eventually going to hit a point where weight gain is eventually going to stop to an extent. And I like to look at this point as a holding phase because it gives me a point to hold this client here for a little bit. I allow them to, in essence, keep these calories and their strength and performance at this one select level for a few weeks. After I kind of keep them here, then I'm okay entering some type of a recomp phase. But I want to make sure that their new developed muscle, the lean tissue they do have, initially have this surplus of food for a little bit before we like to enter a recomp phase.
Yeah.
Now, the best time you want to enter prep for the most part is when your food is at the highest and your activity level is at the lowest, with your body fat in a pretty good place. So how do we get to that point? Well, we take Victoria from where she is right now with her food very high, activity level very low, and we're gonna bring her into a recomp phase first. So she hasn't been losing a drastic amount of weight per week, but she has lost a good amount, again, a good amount of weight since we started her recomp.
Hmm.
All we pretty much did was start increasing activity, and we pulled away a very mild amount of food. Amount of food that, for the most part, is I want to say maybe less than 15% of what her total calorie intake was. This led her to be entering this phase, her losing a decent amount of fat and performance still increasing weekly.
Yeah.
And we're in essence probably going to hold at this phase and probably around the food consumption until weight probably moves down possibly another 10-ish pounds or so.
Yeah.
And again, the biggest goal here is to keep her performance very, very high without having to take too much food away. Because the goal is that when I feel like she's in a good enough position, I'm going to start dialing the cardio back down.
Hmm.
So she's at 30 minutes of stairs right now. She's going to eventually go down to 25, then go to 20, then probably go to 10, and then until she's just back down the step activity.
Hmm.
And that's when I know and I'm in an okay position to want to start to enter her into prep. Because if I can, whatever I can maintain her at with that, in my mind, that is the best position to be in, where I can maintain my weight, maintain my conditioning with just my diet and the activity.
And activity just as in steps and training, no
Yep.
external factors.
So for me, Mark, you have me doing stairs still. So
Mhm.
the obviously like the purpose of that is you still wanted to kind of push uh food a little bit more.
Mhm.
So is there any other like do you want to like go further into
Yeah.
that?
So there's some people who have really aggressive appetites and people who don't. Um, So Victoria is someone who's often hungry, and she can eat. So for her, I never really had to enter or give her stairs, um, until in essence I entered her dieting phase because there wasn't a reason to. She was always hungry, anyway, and never really had any digestive issues. I know, you personally, we had some issues with like gasiness and bloating for a little bit. We had some issues with appetite a little bit, especially when we were getting sick. So like those are the reasons why I like to keep activity in, because those things typically will keep someone hungry
Mhm.
enough, to be able to want to get all the food in. And I know you would never miss a meal, but it's much easier to get food in when you're actually hungry compared to when you're shoving it down your face.
Yeah.
And those are other reasons to have cardio in. If you have a client that doesn't have the biggest appetite, is just to keep their hunger there to make food go down much easier. Because again, you have better adherence if someone doesn't have to force feed food down either.
Right.
Force feeding isn't fun.
Yeah, no, it's probably the least enjoyable part of a whole entire sport. Um, and again, that's what it
Sure,
goes down to.
to do it.
Yeah, it's eating because you have to, not because you want to at that point.
You got
Um,
goals.
But going back to that, I'll even use you as this example, Bree. Um, we're gonna obviously be prepping you for this fall. Right now our food is the highest it's been, and our weight is still steadily increasing. So
Mhm.
you're at that point where Victoria was, where weight's going up without food being increased on a weekly basis.
Mhm.
So we're eventually going to hit that point where weight stops increasing without food going up.
Mhm.
Um, and that's probably where we're going to be in another week or so. We're at that point where, with food not increasing, with food maintaining, weight eventually starts maintaining as well.
Yeah.
And then I know we're in that sweet spot where we can kind of hold, and then we can start increasing activity, and we'll start seeing the recomp start happening. And like another way for us to do that also is based on obviously hunger cues, is if we can realize that when we're in this holding phase, that your hunger is still great, we could possibly start decreasing Stairmaster, start taking that away. So go from 20 minutes to 15, go from 15 to 10, and then take it away completely, and see if we can still maintain weight with that complete out of the picture and keep our appetite and digestion in that place.
Yeah.
Because I will never trade digestion for that. So like if your digestion decreases, and your appetite is gone, I'd much rather have that little extra activity, compared to taking away completely. Because again, like that's the biggest thing. If you can't digest food and you don't really want to eat, that kind of fucks the rest of the picture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I enjoy doing the stairs, so
Yeah, it's nice little me time, right?
Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
it.
you're kind of that. I don't enjoy the stairs at all.
You know what I kind of do too, and that's kind of why I did steps last prep. I'll do steps again this prep, but like I generally enjoy the stairmaster. It's like a nice time to challenge myself, and I was someone who actually generally used to enjoy running. So like I feel like I kind of get like that runner's high.
Mhm.
Like 10 minutes in, like I put on some cocaine fueled EDM music. And have a little dance party in my head,
Yeah.
for 20 minutes. This is why I do cardio at Planet Fitness, because no one knows me there.
Mhm.
So I can dance in the Stairmaster, and no one knows who I am.
Yeah, and you
Um,
can people watch.
I know.
Yeah, it's a great place to people watch.
No, it totally is. It definitely is. So maybe one day I'll end up on gym fails for dancing on the Stairmaster, at Planet Fitness.
One day.
Um, one day, right? I love it. So, like, the biggest takeaway I want people to kind of get from this is that if we want to start either increasing or decreasing, or increasing weight or decreasing weight, we first have to figure out what we're actually doing. So that's just calculating what your baseline diet is. After you have whatever your baseline diet is, and this could literally just be from tracking your food for 7 days and dividing it by seven, and figuring out if you're maintaining at that. And you can, in essence, probably follow that for 7 to 14 days. And based on what happens with your physique and weight, you can either move food up or down based on what the individual goal is. Um, if your goal is to obviously keep increasing weight, start tracking other metrics besides just weight gain, performance in the gym, or possibly even measurements, right? Because if weight keeps going up, but your waist circumference stays the same, you obviously shouldn't be too worried, right? That means it's going to the place where you want it to go. And again, like muscles are like 70% water. So like we shouldn't be using a scale to really determine growth too much. Because again, like fluctuation between water and electrolytes are all big major factors as well. When we're doing a weight loss phase, obviously trying to aim for no more than 1% loss per week of total weight. So again, if you're 200 pounds, 2 pounds per week, should be the maximum goal that you're aiming for per week, to make sure that we're not losing anything beside just fat. And then obviously when we are in our off season, try to stay disciplined as much as possible. So that's by keeping food more interesting, not turning our cheat meals into binges, and then trying to have our cheat meals maybe later in the day to keep us on track during the days as well. Anything else you guys want to
Just make sure you pick a good cheap. You're gonna take one, or
add?
you're given one. Let me rephrase that.
And be honest with your coach as well during the week so that adjustments can be made accordingly. Like if you mess up, make sure you tell your coach.
Totally. Yeah. No, having bad information can only fuck us in the long run, because like it gives me the wrong information. So like if I see weight increasing because you're having ho-hos a couple times a week, then I think that possibly you're in a caloric surplus because of the food I'm giving you.
Mhm.
But in reality, you're just having an extra 600-700 calories each week in ho-hos. And just the change of that could change the direction of what we're doing, and if you're going to have more cardio or less cardio, if your needs going up or going down. And it also makes me think that possibly I'm doing something wrong on my end, when in reality, what's happening is that you're just having more calories than what I expected you to. But I love it, guys. I love it. So, yeah. Hey, guys, I want to thank you all for watching MVP Coaches Corner. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot any of us a message on Instagram and we can get right back to you. We also do have the MVP intake form in all of our bios and our link trees. So look out for that if that's something that you wanted to do. Beside that, I appreciate you all watching MVP Coaches Corner. Take care, guys.